Are you trying to tell me that Zack Snyder shot one of the most peak exchanges ever between Batman and the Joker in his garage? WB, why did you fire him? You're going to start regretting it very soon. Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and a very warm welcome to Sunday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. On today's show, one of many topics we'll be talking about, we'll be asking what went wrong for Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Why has it flopped? And it has flopped. It's flopped big. The audience doesn't lie, and the numbers don't lie. Now, the people who saw the movie have given it an 87% fan rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's on 60 plus from verified critics right now. I think that's the case, but it keeps on going, flopping up and down. So why has this film failed? First of all, why didn't people go to see the movie? And bad marketing, as I've explained multiple times before, is a lazy excuse by movie Twitter. People on movie Twitter are like, movie rejects, art school rejects who never got to make film themselves. They don't watch films, they don't love films, they just talk about film. They know absolutely nothing. But let me take it from someone who actually understands this industry, that works within this industry, who has trained to be in this industry, who spent 6 months in Hollywood. No studio is going to chase good money after bad to market a film that's going to flop anyway. And they knew this, but the marketing was strong, not as strong as Black Adam. By the way, the marketing for Black Adam was fire, and the movie still flopped. You can't sell a turd to the public. It's as simple as that. It doesn't matter how much you shine that turd, the public are no longer stupid. My generation was stupid. We watched every Arnie movie, even the bad ones. Every Sly movie, even the bad ones. We didn't care because we loved movie stars and we supported movie stars. These days, or as it was, because I think we're moving away from that trend, audiences today support the franchise instead of movie stars. So basically, the dynamic there has changed, but I think it's changing again as audiences demand good movies. So marketing has nothing to do, bad marketing has nothing to do with Shazam Fury of the Gods failing at the domestic and global and international box office. That's not the reason. Let's look at one of the predominant factors of the first film's success. And that's Freddie Freeman and basically Asher Angel's character, Billy Batson's friendship. Billy's and Freddie's friendship is the power of that movie. You've got a crippled, disabled boy who's been brought up by this wonderful, loving foster family. But you've got the very opposite in Billy Batson. He was, he's looking for his mum. He thinks he was naturally separated from her, but she just left him because she couldn't handle bringing up a small boy on her own. So he's not got a friend in the world until he meets Freddie. The relationship between Freddie and Billy is one of the most beautiful dynamics and kind of screen partnerships in CBM history. And audiences, parents and children ate it up. I have nieces and nephews. They absolutely love that element. It was one of the best, if not the strongest elements of the first movie. In the second movie, they decided not to bother so much with that dynamic. You barely see Asher Angel. Now, basically, Jack Dylan Grazer, is it? I always get the surname wrong, but basically, Jack's performance is lauded. Basically, everyone slept on the performance of Asher Angel in the first Shazam. When he's on screen on the sequel, he's really, really good. But we don't see him enough. And we don't see Billy and Freddie together. They're separated. Basically, Freddie is sent off on some kind of counter mission in this sequel. So they partner him up with Rachel Ziegler, because Rachel Ziegler is supposed to be the next best big thing, right? So she's already been in a Steven Spielberg movie that flopped, by the way. I think she thinks she's more talented and special than she actually is. So they shoved her in this movie. So you don't get that brilliant, screen partnership from, Jack and Asher. And you barely see Asher in the movie. And I think more people prefer Asher Angel to Zachary Levi. But you've got to have Shazam in the movie, right? The movie is called Shazam. After all, he's important, but they should have got equal screen time. You should never have more Clark Kent than Superman. And you should never have more Superman than Clark Kent. It should be equal. Because I think both those dual identities have equal fandoms. And people who demand to see those kind of, characters and dual identities as much as the other. And so that's one of the many reasons this film fails. It doesn't have the heart of the first movie. And the biggest part of that heart is the friendship between Freddie and Billy. And this is where they go wrong. Number 2, in a post-credit scene in the first film, we see Dr. Savannah and Mr. Mind making big plans. They're not in the second movie. Well, apart from a post-credit scene, basically, Mr. Mind and Dr. Savannah would have been better than the 3 girl bosses that were wronged by a man. Basically, that's the moral of the story, isn't it? The wizard Shazam stole those poor women's power and they want it back. And because he's a man, he should never have taken power away from a woman, right? So instead of giving us the villains you teased in a post-credit scene at the end of the first movie, you gave us gal bosses. Rachel Ziegler, Dame Helen Mirren, Lucy Liu are perfectly fine in the movie, but they don't leave an impression on you. Mark Strong as Dr. Savannah was fucking fire in the first movie, and we know it. But instead of keeping that dynamic and what you promised, and then they rip the piss out of what they promised, because they want to cover their own asses and say, ha ha ha, we're actually laughing at ourselves. This is what they do. When they get complaints on the internet about something, they like, look at us, we're laughing at ourselves, aren't we cool? No, you're not cool. You're incompetent. Your incompetence is repetitive. And this is all down to the direction of Walter Hamada and nothing else, right? The next reason the film fails. Basically, David F. Sandberg is a director not in control of his own movie. He's just a director. He is not in charge of the storytelling or the narrative of the movie. David F. Sandberg wanted Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck to reprise their Batman and Superman roles, but they weren't allowed. Then he wanted to have the Justice Society from Black Adam cameo in that post-credit scene instead of the people, James Gunn's wife and James Gunn's best friend in the world, right? Yeah, getting it right. So instead of them, we would have had, Hawkman and the rest of them. Wouldn't that have been awesome? But no, because this was back in 2021, 2020 when they were shooting this movie. So it wasn't even when Gunn officially took over. For all we know, Gunn always knew who was taking over anyway. We don't know. But so the film doesn't do the things that you need to do to get an audience, to get a repeat audience. But we're not even at the stage of a repeat audience here. We are at the stage where people haven't even seen the movie and they're not interested in going to see the movie. One of the biggest problems for this film is, thanks to Mr. James Gunn and his bad tactical schoolboy errors, here's another one. By telling the whole world in The Flash they're resetting the DC timeline, basically saying, well, Shazam! Fury of the Gods doesn't matter. So audiences are saying, why bother to go and watch? What's the point of seeing this movie? I mean, call me old-fashioned, we used to go and watch movies to enjoy movies. But because Kevin Feige has groomed the audience into thinking 5, 10, 20 movies a fucking head, everyone wants to know that they're not wasting their time. You're not wasting your time to go and see a movie. But unfortunately, there you have it. Everybody knows that this movie and these characters and these versions of these characters didn't have a future. And it's all right for Zachary Levi to say, well, it's all about the box office. Get it? Go and watch the film. Get it? Trying to sell the movie, trying to put more butts on seats. But audiences are no longer stupid. As I've said many times, I'm a bit hungover, so I may have already said it on this one or the version of the video that I had to delete because I made a mistake. I don't know. But, at the end of the day, audiences are smarter these days. When we were kids, we'd watch every Sly movie, Sylvester Stallone movie, even the bad ones. We'd go and watch every Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, even the bad ones. We supported movie stars. And these days, you young people are supporting the franchise. But I think you're even moving away from the franchise dynamic now, and you're demanding good movies. You wanted this. You asked for this. You wanted the DCEU to be like the MCU. That's what you wanted. That is what you asked for. And this is what you got. You got what you wanted, right? Be careful on the poison you want to gestate in your stomach, because once it's in your stomach, it's too late to pump your stomach. You had a director in Zack Snyder delivering high art, and you rejected it because he told his own stories and his own versions of these DC characters, because Zack Snyder has an imagination. You were very upset with him because he didn't stay faithful to everything that holds true in the comics. This is the problem with CBM fans. They want everything to be like the comics, and it can't always translate. Superman was going to be Superman if you gave the man a chance. The man was delivering a Lord of the Rings type of epic kind of 5-movie arc, and you didn't let him do it. Ben Affleck was going to make a fire peak Batman movie, and because of you people, it's never going to happen. I and many fans have been robbed from it. And you know what? I am angry about that. I am disappointed about that. Ben Affleck, Deathstroke, Alfred getting murdered by Deathstroke, a revenge movie. It would have been awesome. Predominantly set in Arkham Asylum. Ben Affleck with his new movie Air is proving what a great director he is. He's already proved it. He was going to write and direct that movie and star in it, but because they interfered and pressured him, and what they did with Justice League, he couldn't handle it anymore. His mental health couldn't handle it. So thank you, WB, for driving the best Batman and one of the best actor-directors since Mel Gibson away from DC. Thank you very fucking much. Thank you for that. We were going to get a peak fire Batman movie. But you wanted Shazam. You wanted Zachary Levi saying that Shazam, Captain Marvel, is like Deadpool. He's not fucking like Deadpool. But WB are obsessed with fucking Marvel. You know, even having Rachel Ziegler comparing the way she uses her powers to Wanda in WandaVision. Yep. This is where we are. This studio is fucking clueless. As I said on my live yesterday, Zack Snyder wasn't clueless. Zack Snyder had a plan. James Gunn doesn't have a plan. James Gunn's put a bunch of really cool titles on a bit of paper and delivered them up. It looks really good, but it's easy to write a bunch of titles on a list. Executing them and making them great is another thing. And I ask again, what is DC Studios? What is it? Who works? Come on, James, give me a list of your employees at DC Studios. At this moment, it's Christina Hodson, that guy who was involved with Netflix Daredevil, and a couple of other people. That's the only, and apart from him and Peter Safran, there doesn't seem to be anyone else working at that studio. I'm still thinking this could be a front for the old regime. It's all very, very strange. It's all very, very dodgy. And with these remaining kind of movies from this defunct franchise coming out this year, and us having to wait to get the next chapter, like we got a few things next year. I think Joker is something to be excited about. It's something that James Gunn or David Zaslav can't ruin. In fact, David Zaslav is very, very excited about that movie. He wanted Todd Phillips to be the lone CEO of DC Studios. Again, as I said on my live, how do you go from Gunn and Safran to Todd Phillips? I mean, it's like going from, I don't know, it's like going from like Einstein to Mr. Bean, isn't it? I mean, it's just very, very strange to me how we've gone from one extreme to the other. And yeah, really, I'm starting to have many, many doubts. I've always been a huge Zack Snyder fan, but I know getting rid of that man is a mistake, and it's pretty clear he's not moving on. Yesterday was the 2-year anniversary for the release of Zack Snyder's Justice League, one of the greatest films ever shot, edited, and made. The score is fire. Everything about that film is fire. They were trending with sell Snyderverse to Netflix. It was a really great day, and I really enjoyed celebrating that day. I did a live. I then basically watched the 8-hour version of Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut, the 4-hour colour version, and Justice is Grey, which is another 4 hours. I had that running all night long. Of course, I fell asleep eventually, but wow, yeah. I mean, when you've got a director delivering you that kind of classic, epic, movie making marvel, a great achievement, and then you fire him. It tells you everything about a studio. And when you get new leadership and you kind of don't bring him back, you don't say, well, here's a place, Zach, in the DC Elseworlds. Once you've done Rebel Moon and all the other stuff you're working on, come, join us. Here's DC Elseworlds, a place where it's not interconnected. This is where you should have been from the beginning. Do your thing, mate, because there's many, many fans around the world who want to see Zach do his thing for DC, but they won't let him. These incompetent clowns won't let him. Now he is hinting that he's going to screen Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut on IMAX. Now, if this is true, I don't know how this is going to work. Will it be done at this SnyderCon event? If it is a SnyderCon event, will he be taking questions and answers afterwards? That will be a great experience. Again, I miss out on all of these things. We literally, I think in London, had basically a concert for the Batman score. And these are the kind of events that I really get gutted about missing. It's the only kind of negative element of living in another country like Cyprus where these things never happen. But yeah, Zack Snyder is hinting he's going to screen Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut on IMAX. So is it going to be at SnyderCon? He's saying SnyderCon is, or he's saying there's 2 dates. April the 28th, isn't it? Yeah, April the 28th to the 30th of April, right? So I don't know if he's doing SnyderCon and screening Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut on IMAX there. Or he's just screening it at Kevin Smith's Theatre, as we heard was going to happen. I don't know. But whatever the case, it's really exciting. And this is what's happened this week. It's been a huge positive week if you're a Snyder fan. And it's been a really bad week if you're a fan of James Gunn and his DC Universe plans. He came out announcing he was directing Superman Legacy. Didn't sound very happy about it, even admitted he doesn't feel Superman or the movie in his bones. Just because he wrote the script, he said, it doesn't mean he feels it in his bones. That tells you everything you want to know. And this is the biggest of red flags for me. And this has really piqued my concern. I was a lot more excited about this new direction before I noticed he said that. And I belatedly noticed he said that. So I'm very, very, very concerned about DC right now. And I do feel with the achievements of Zack Snyder, at least bring him back in the DC Elseworlds. He had a plan. He got what was going on. But in terms of Shazam! Fury of the Gods, you do understand that we haven't had a hit DCEU movie for 4 years. Since 2019's Shazam. What does that tell you? What does that tell you about the Hamadaverse? The Hamadaverse was a failure. The Johnsonburg mini-era was a failure, which included Justice League. They failed. Zack Snyder succeeded. Only in a few people's kind of limited mind did Zack Snyder fail. Zack Snyder didn't fail. All these fans who are called the Snyderverse stands now, the Snyder Army are behind him through his DC movies and what he did for them as a movie maker. Man of Steel is peak, BVS is peak, the Snyder Cut, one of the best films ever fucking made in the genre, and outside of the genre. And this man is not allowed to make DC movies. And I don't understand that. So we haven't had a DCEU hit since 2019, Shazam. And let's open that up a bit. It was hardly a huge hit, was it? The only reason it was successful, because it just about had solid box office, very solid box office. And you're talking about box office that films that are not superhero movies normally get, and because they've got a cheaper budget, we call them hits. And this is what happened to Shazam. Hamada was able to produce that film for under 100 million, so it made around just under 400 million, so it made 2 or 3 times more than its budget. So that's a hit. It didn't lose money, it made a huge profit, it's a hit. But it wasn't a huge hit, and it wouldn't take much for a sequel to fail. People are not interested in seeing Tom Hanks' big version in a superhero. People want the proper Captain Marvel, the proper Billy Batson. They want to see Superman in those films. They want to see Black Adam in those films, and they don't want an ex-fucking wrestler running a DC franchise like Shazam. And so this is where we are. So it's not just about Shazam or Black Adam or Wonder Woman 84 or Birds of Prey. But when you keep on failing and you never learn from your mistakes, this is what you get. So I can pinpoint why Shazam! Fury of the Gods is problematic. But ultimately, it's problem beyond problem. How long did you expect audiences to give the DCEU a chance, another chance? Here are the facts. Zack Snyder had an audience. Not a huge audience, but he had an audience that were coming in, that were making bank for his 3 movies. They weren't breaking box office records, although the opening of BVS was historic. The drop-off, because someone tried to call out the drop-off and be clever on my live yesterday, but the point being is the only reason it dropped off is because people didn't get the movie WB marketed them, right? They were told this is a WWF Superman versus Batman brawl, who will win, all that bullshit. That was never the movie that Zack Snyder was making. And in fact, if they marketed and sold the movie Zack was making, we would never have had that drop-off. If they didn't cut half an hour off the fucking movie, we would never have had that drop-off. Now, when we look at what it made, 850 million. So it wouldn't have taken much more, to push it over to 1 billion. Now, I think the studio were looking more close to 2 billion with that movie. I don't think it would have ever got there, but who knows what it would have gone to. I believe if audiences were sold a movie with trailers showing us the deep narrative of the movie. I mean, the first teaser trailer absolutely was an accurate depiction of the movie. You see the Superman statue, you hear politicians talking. It's a brilliant, tense teaser trailer. I think you know the one I'm talking about. That one works. It's the other ones that got very, very popcorn chomping. Who will win? I hate Batman, Superman hates... Superman hates Batman, Batman hates Superman. That's the way the trailers are marketing the film. It's all fucking wrong. It's not what Zack and Chris are attempting to do with the movie. They sold it wrongly. They named it Batman versus Superman. They even made it sound like a WWF superhero fucking brawl. Zack and Chris did not want that title for the movie. If they didn't missell that movie, they would have made a lot more money. That movie didn't fall short in the box office because of the director or the writer or the composer. That movie is fucking fire, right? And the only reason it failed to make the money they needed, because of them, the clowns at the studio, because they didn't have faith in what Zack was doing. And in Man of Steel, they didn't have faith in what Goya and Nolan was doing, even though he made them a pot of money with a Batman trilogy. So these people are clowns. And a lot of those people are still at the studio. Believe it or not, there's a lot of people from the older regimes still there, but they're hiding in plain sight. Nothing has changed, people, and here we are. Yes, the firing of Zack Snyder was done cruelly, the way they pretended Joss Whedon and Zack were friends, the way they tried to use the death of the man's daughter, what a huge tragedy, as an excuse for him leaving when they fired him had nothing to do with it. But the pressure they were putting on him to make his movie smiley in 2 hours. As well as his daughter's suicide, he couldn't handle it. He didn't have to fight them. If his daughter, if the tragedy doesn't happen, he's got the energy to fight them. Look what happened afterwards, right? He and us, the fans, stood together. A director and the fans stood together and fought for what was right, and we got a fucking 4-hour Justice League movie. One of the best films ever made, and that, my friends, isn't a debate, it's a factual statement. Flop after flop after flop after flop after flop. Their only consistency is failure. And Zack Snyder was a success because he was making beautiful Lord of the Rings level movies. Now, you may laugh at me for saying that, but it's a fucking fact. Now, I don't necessarily think that Zack Snyder should return and lead another central universe, but I think in an Elseworld scenario, he could keep on making his beautiful movies and they would make bank and they would make extra money for the studio. But the studio's head is not screwed on properly. And that's the problem. Zaslav's come in, I'm a big shot, I want to make loads of money, I want the success Feige, Marvel and Disney have had. Past tense, by the way. Let's do an interconnected franchise, right? It's not going to work. It's not going to work, people. Because people are past all that shit now. People want to see proper, real movies. Not an interconnected franchise. How many interconnected franchises that has, like, WB succeeded in that other people didn't run apart from WB? WB didn't run the Harry Potter franchise. Yeah, they distributed it, they owned Harry Potter, they owned the IP, but they weren't running it. Because as soon as Joe Rowling and WB got involved, they were clashing. They wanted the school to be set in America. They wanted everyone to have an American accent. And Joe Rowling said, fuck you. She was right. She brought in a couple of British people, British directors, writers, producers, and they made a great franchise. That had nothing to do with WB. The only reason that movie series was successful is because of Joe Rowling's decision making, right? Nothing to do with them. In terms of Lord of the Rings, we did have Alan Horn in charge back then, so that was a really competent CEO, and Peter Jackson fucking nailed it, right? So, like, old WB with Alan Horn was a very efficient, well-oiled machine. This isn't run by oil, this is run by dirty, grimy grease, by corrupt people who keep on trying to cover up their mistakes. While AT&T and John Stankey were saying to Zack Snyder, here's 70, 80 million, mate, fix your 4-hour movie, help us launch our brand new streaming service, right? WB Pictures were trying to ruin it all and block Snyder every time. Snyder nearly quit for a second fucking time, but he stayed there for the fans to deliver what they demanded and fought with him to get. We were going to get 4 episodes. We were going to get the Snyder Cut in episodes. It was going to lead to a Justice League Series 2, a Justice League Series 3. That's what AT&T wanted, but the corrupt bastards at WB Pictures put a fucking stop to it. That's why it ended up being a mammoth 4-hour movie instead of being made in 4 chapters. I celebrate that we've got a 4-hour movie. I'd love to see how he separated it in chapters as well. That will be interesting because I think there is they are segregated somewhere in the vaults at WB as episodes. I'd like to see that as well. Ultimately, we lost one of the greatest filmmakers of our time working on DC. And right now, a bunch of peasants are schooling Gunn and Saffron and making monkeys out of them. I'm talking about the Snyderverse fans. You're being schooled, James and Peter, and exposed by a bunch of working class people. And it makes me fucking laugh. And also, Ben Affleck, of course, delivered the ultimate uppercut this week. There is a bit of news from James Gunn. He promises he will be working with Margot Robbie. Again, I can hardly contain myself. I don't like Margot Robbie anymore as an artist because she's a feminist. She ruined Birds of fucking Prey. She ruined a DC movie. And that's a big crime to me because of her extremism. So I'm not a fan of Margot Robbie. I don't give a shit if she comes back as Harley Quinn or not. That would have excited me a few years ago. So what's the message that the audience are giving out to WB from the failure of Shazam Fury of the Gods, Black Adam, Wonder Woman 84, Birds of Prey? We haven't had a hit for 4 years in the DCEU. But the only hits from DC have been the Batman and Joker. What is the fucking audience trying to tell you? It's trying to tell you that stuff like the Dark Knight franchise, Joker and the Batman are the things that they want to see. And they're not interested in an empty bag of fucking fresh air, interconnected universe. You're going to invest so much in that and get little out of it. You're going to fucking ruin this Superman movie. And Superman in this franchise, because it's being made by someone who doesn't even want to make a Superman or a Batman movie. He wants to make Peacemaker 3. Let him make Peacemaker 3. He wants to make Peacemaker 2, Peacemaker Season 2. Let him make Peacemaker Season 2. He wants to do the Suicide Squad 3. Let him make Suicide Squad 3. Let him do the stuff he wants to do. He shouldn't be the CEO of DC Studios. It's not his strength. I don't even know how he's got involved or been convinced to do this. It's going to be a fucking disaster, everyone. What we need are just Elseworld movies. That's it. The Joker, the Batman, Zack Snyder's universe, and different auteurs like Denis Villeneuve, Peter Jackson, whoever, coming in to give us their versions of DC movies. This is the direction we need to go in, because this interconnected franchise is dead before it started. This has been Sunday's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection, and I'll see you again in the next video. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen, and I better go because I've got the giggles. I don't know why. See you again soon. See you tomorrow.